What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today with another hero review, this time about Starwing Jarrah. And Starwing Jarrah is a hero that wasn't in the meta for quite some time, still mostly isn't, but still we have an S tier copy now, by the way, which I just bought for this video. No, I bought it because I wanted it, and yeah, well, we will just see what she can do, and yeah, that's quite fun. Always nice to see some clean one shots. Doesn't work on every single stage, but like when it works quite well. It looks quite nice, and that's 140 Void Corruption, by the way. On Dark, I don't think it works. I think the carry dodges every single time. That's quite annoying. Well, and then we have revives, of course, which are also a bit annoying, but we have second active skill, so that works as well. And yeah, so Starwing Jarrah certainly has a bit of nuke, certainly has a bit of power. And now she has a Destiny transition skill. The question is, of course, is that a good one? But before we start into that, let's take a look at this beautiful Starwing Jarrah. Just got that. 27 million attack on here. We got GK Defier Taunt Immunity, effect of being healed on nice S tier copy. From Soul, by the way. Thank you, mate, for selling me that. That's quite nice. Full sublimation, and we will see what we can do with that. For the Destiny transition skill, I already said she got a good one. She really got a good one, and not only that, it's not only that she got a good skill, she also got good nodes. Like, all of her nodes are basically nice, so let's check those out, let's see what it's all about. First, the normal skill. When Self has 12 layers of transition power, consumes 12 layers of them to deal 1000% of attack damage to all enemies, there is a 25% chance to freeze or petrify the targets for 3 rounds. So that on its own is already pretty good, honestly. Most people, when they first see it, they say like, okay, yeah, it's 25% chance to freeze, that's not that much. But if we compare it actually to her active skill that people know that can CC, 35%. Not that much more, given there is focus, and well, that helps, of course, so that's a thing. But considering we have this active skill that has 35%, 25%, not all that bad. Beyond that, 1000% damage to all enemies, so this is indeed a skill that hits all enemies, not just a single one, and it is triggered whenever we reach 12 layers of transition power, which, given that we have a Starwing Jarrah that self-feeds herself all the time with energy whenever she CCs an enemy, and we can check that out as well. I mean, we basically just saw it, but where is it actually? There. When an enemy is petrified, deals 1200% of attack damage to all petrified enemies and restores self 18 energy. So that's the thing. And beyond that, every ally that releases an active skill increases 25 energy as well. So we can just go for active skill transition power, and every second active skill that we do will basically trigger this skill, which is insane. One more thing to note here. It triggers instantly, so it is when Self has 12 layers of transition power, no other requirements. So once we do our second active skill, that gives us the second 6, so total 12 layers of transition power, we will instantly trigger that, which means every second active skill that we do will have an additional 1000% of attack damage, and then the additional CC. It is freeze and petrify, which is not exactly the same as our usual CC. As you can see, that is called freeze, cold chill, and petrify rocklock, and those are the transcendence versions of those CCs, and petrify and freeze on the Destiny transition skill are the normal versions, so that is a little bit weaker. It says can be considered as petrify, can be considered as freeze, which is for effects like damage to poison targets or damage to frozen targets, and yeah, well, so on. What we don't have for normal petrify and freeze are those extra effects. Heroes inflicted with rocklock are unable to release their active skills, basic attacks, extra attacks, or counter attacks, which is the normal effect of petrify, and then we get the extra part, and their current energy is fixed and can neither be increased nor decreased, which means even if you hit a hero that is under petrify rocklock, you won't get any energy. If the enemy runs Demon Bell team, and tries to feed energy to this hero, won't gain any energy, so that doesn't work. Freeze Cold Shell, for the most part, the same effect as Freeze. And then we have and cannot restore HP. So that really makes heroes vulnerable, given that, well, if you can't restore any HP, you will eventually die, of course, to damage, like damage over time effects, bleed, and so on. So that's something that is really valuable. We don't really have that here. We don't really have that on the basic version of the skill, but in my opinion, it's still good. Why is it still good? Well, because it still works for those skills. If we check that out, when an enemy is frozen, deals 1200% attack damage to all frozen enemies and restores self HP. And we had the Petrify effect that we already read. Those two still work. So we can freeze, we can petrify, we can trigger those skills. And if we check out the sublimation, when an enemy is frozen, additionally bleeds all frozen enemies. That is a huge source of damage as well. And an enemy is petrified, additionally poisons all enemies. So we have bleed and poison on her as well, regularly in the active skill, but then an additional layer with the transition skill as well. And then, of course, we already have the layer of CC. We already CC with our active skill. So this really comes directly afterwards. And afterwards? Sounds funny. Well, this basically comes directly afterwards and CCs those enemies that aren't CC'd yet. So it's pretty good. And on top of that, well, heroes that are frozen can still be petrified. So that is something we can do as well, which is quite huge. Beyond that, I want you to keep in mind that this skill, this passive skill, is one of her biggest sources of damage. 1200% whenever an enemy is frozen to all frozen enemies. So if you freeze like all of them, that's a huge chunk of damage. Same for Petrify. And, well, it's not even really that. That's 2400%. Not bad at all, but also not insane. This here, on the other hand, really insane, and this cuts through Unbending Will. And that's just the base version. That's the base, non-upgraded version, nothing fancy, just unlock it and you're good to go, basically. So we are already good at that point. Now we add up on it. And you can already notice a little bit, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Starwing Jarrah. Starwing Jarrah, in my opinion, quite insane. I think we will be quite quick because all of this is basically insane. We don't need this, we don't need this, we want this active skill, obviously, because we energy feed ourselves so much. Definitely energy skill attack. Then we have additionally reduced the target's energy by 10. Don't think that's impactful enough. I mean, we hit the whole enemy team, but yeah, reducing the target's energy by 10 is, well, in best case, negating the energy feed he gets from getting hit by our attack, so I don't think that's really that nice. That's alright, that's a whole lot of damage because we hit the entire enemy team, so that's really a lot actually. I like this. Extra 25% chance to freeze or petrify each enemy for 3 rounds. So we have an additional layer of CC on top of the layer of CC that we already have, and we just saw the passive skills. That's pure damage. You can either run this or this, both will do fine. This is more CC chance. Then we have this, reduce the target's control immunity. That's fine. That will help us a lot to CC the enemies. Armor reduction, not too much of a fan of that, won't really help our damage too much. And then endgame armor break is so common that we are close to 100% or at 100% at most times, so we don't really need to reduce the enemy's armor. Additionally, reduce the target speed by 20 for 2 rounds. That, on the other hand, that can be worthwhile. When we run Starwing Jarrah, we run CC, we want to outspeed. Won't do anything in PvE. In PvP, however, well, minus 20 speed, that's pretty good. In PvE, I would always run this. This is certainly fine to run in PvP as well. That's very good for PvP. But for PvP, keep in mind you have this option as well. In terms of power, I would say this is more powerful though. Reduces frontline enemies' energy by 20. Decent, but not insane. Additional layer of damage, always alright. And then we have this. This is insane. Additionally increases self-energy by 100. We don't really need this skill to gain another active skill. We are mostly fine with our intrinsic energy feed from CCing enemies. And maybe if you run like a mirror or something in your team or a few mirrors, that will give you energy as well. So we don't really need that for that purpose. But what we need it for is if we check out the skills here. Give me a second, where is it actually? So if you read it here, when releasing active skill, every 1 overspilled energy restores self HP equal to 0.5% of max HP. So we get energy restoration, which is nice. And then we have if self energy is greater than or equal to 150 when releasing the active skill, then the following effects are released to all uncontrolled enemies. 35% chance for Petrified Rocklog, basically the same CC chance as buff here another time. And then we have the same effect basically for over 200 energy again. And well, we are pretty much in the realm of triggering the 200 energy one, even without a really big energy feed, if we select the energy one here. So that gives us an insane chance to CC. I would say nearly guarantees that we get a full CC on the next turn. And that's quite insane and quite remarkable. So I would recommend this. You can go for damage. I wouldn't take this. It's not really that great. Damage is decent, but I don't really like it, to be honest. In my opinion, you're better off prepping your next attack. And keep in mind, you also get 1 skill damage for every energy over 100. So if you already natively reach 100 energy and then you get an additional 100 energy, that's also 100 skill damage for your next active skill. And with all the layers of damage we have, that's quite a lot actually. All damage dealt, decent. Control precision is alright. Personally, for PvP, definitely I would go for the speed. 100 speed is a lot. With Starwing Jarrah, we always play a speed game. So why not take the 100 speed? No, I don't really go for that on other heroes, I have to say. I looked at a lot of heroes and I thought like, nah, not really. But on Starwing Jarrah, I can see that. The other 2 options are fine as well. We can do 15 all damage dealt. Though I would say control precision. But then again, we already probably stack into control precision. We have focus layers which grant us control precision. We might even have control precision from the awakening bonus stats. So I don't know if an additional 8% really is that huge. Then again, we can take some all damage dealt, which is a nice damage increase and probably very good. For myself, I would select the speed just for PvP and all damage dealt for PvE. And with that, we come to the last note, which is the upgraded version of the transition skill. Changes the transition skill to when Swelf has 12 layers of transition power, consumes 12 layers of them to deal 1500% of attack damage to all enemies and reduce their control immunity by 20% for 1 round. There is a 30% chance to inflict Petrified Rocklog on the target, whose HP is no less than 50% for 3 rounds, and a 30% chance to inflict Freeze Cold Chill on the target whose HP is not higher than 50% for 3 rounds, which should roughly resemble the V4 version of our active skill, I think. Let's check that out. There's a 30% chance to inflict Petrified Rocklog. Exactly. It's basically the V4 version of the active skill. No idea why they didn't go for the sublimed version. Sublimed version is actually 35%, so that's the difference there. It's still pretty good. We get Petrified Rocklog here now, so that's a difference to the basic one that we had. This one just freeze and petrify, and on this one, Petrified Rocklog, freeze, cold chill. The upgraded versions, we just talked about it. Not too much of a difference other than that. We get the control immunity reduction, which hopefully happens before those effects actually. Depends on how they coded it. I hope they coded it right. If that happens before this, that's actually quite good. That being said, it is for 1 round, so we will do our active skill, then this will happen, and in the best case, this control immunity reduction affects this part of the effect, and well, the CC we had on the second note here might also be affected by that, but certainly not our active skill on that round, and that also means, of course, given that this is a reduction for only 1 round, our next active skill won't profit from that as well. So I would say this is not that relevant. Not that relevant at all. This includes a 50% damage increase. Yeah, it's 1000% attack damage, upgraded to 1500% attack damage, which I would argue is not that relevant as well. Getting Petrified Rocklog and Cold Chill is mostly the bigger effect, but I would argue the transition skill upgrade, one of the weaker ones. One of the weaker ones, though, I would argue you will probably take it if you can. Just for the upgrade from Petrify to Petrify Rocklock and Freeze to Freeze Cold Chill. The good thing with this hero, and that is mostly what I like, you get a very good skill at the start. You have this wonderful skill at the start that will just be a nice addition. It is easy to trigger, it works very well, and you can just use that to enhance your Starwing Jarrah and make her a lot better. And every single node that you get is like a little piece of candy, because it always includes something nice. It's never like, well, this is now a dead node and we don't really know what to take here. Nah, it's always like, okay, we have huge damage, we have CC, and here we have a control immunity and a target speed reduction, and everything is basically, it always includes something great. It's a little bit like SFX, where I had the same experience and thought like, okay, every single node is great here, and that is really the experience with Starwing Jarrah. Should you take it? Is that your new main hero? No. It's still Starwing Jarrah. She can CC, which is great. A lot of you guys used her for Void Campaign. We still have the issue that in later stages we get outsped, so then the enemy has the advantage of being able to break out of our CC, which makes it a lot more difficult. And this won't change anything about the inherent weaknesses Starwing Jarrah has. But that being said, that is now a way better Starwing Jarrah, and I think she might be a PvP beast once we get back to the matter of CC teams. So, your first carry hero? Not her, but maybe later on. And maybe for PvP if you can afford it. But as a starter, I like the burst damage a little bit. She needs like one turn where she really does the basic skill, and then on the next turn she can do something, but I don't think she's quite that much of a single carry, especially in the later stages. In the early stages, most definitely. Absolutely insane. We saw enough clears with Starwing Jarrah. We saw Vortex clears with Starwing Jarrah. That all works. Her CC is very valuable indeed, and well, unless you face like a Valkyr stage, then the CC is less than valuable, then you will probably hate it. But yeah, I would probably not go for her first. Probably more like something like LFA or anything in that realm. But you will see that in the next episode. So that being said, have you tried Starwing Jarrah? Do you like her skill set? Comment that below. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And with that, I wish you a great day. And we'll see us in the next one.